we go. Hello, Dr. Keaton Hageman. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm very, very good. I'm very good. So it's very much a pleasure for me to be hosting you today. So Renewables in Africa, a podcast. We're having a high-level interview with a key industry player like yourself. So we're going to be talking about the wind industry. This is an industry that's particularly dear to my heart simply because at Renewables in Africa, we published a book, The Wind Industry Outlook, in 2017, talking about the landscape and the opportunities for the wind and the continent. And today we are very much having one key player, and that's very interesting. And more importantly, a key player from Africa. So, Dr. Hageman, so without wasting any time, would you mind just going through some question with me? So I will have the first question for you, and to give justice to your career and your company, I would like you to introduce yourself, please, and also the fantastic company that you're running.
Sure. So first, a little bit about myself. I've been in the wind industry for almost 20 years now. I started way back in 2001, getting excited about the development of wind energy globally and in South Africa in particular. Became a board member of the South African Wind Energy Association back then, and started exploring the potential and the possibilities in the country. I then completed many years of research at the University of Cape Town, graduating with my PhD in 2008 after publishing the Mesoscale Wind Atlas of South Africa, basically documenting, where the interesting areas are in South Africa. And then in 2009, together with my colleague Nicholas Rowland, we founded G7 Renewable Energies. G7 is a specialized wind farm developer. Right from the start, we've been focusing on wind as our forte, as something we have key technical expertise and know-how in. And we've been developing many projects throughout the years. We're participating in all rounds of the South Africa's Renewable Procurement Program, the REIPP. And yeah, our most advanced project and our most biggest success to date has been the 140 megawatt Roggeveld wind farm, which reached financial close in April 2018 at the lowest tariff ever awarded to generation assets in South Africa. And that was about 70 cents in rand terms.
Okay, that's actually quite interesting. Now, talking about the project that you just mentioned about this landmark project that you've delivered. So how many projects do you currently have under development? I know this one you mentioned just finished, but in total, how many would you say you have under development?
So let me differentiate between the different stages. So Roggeveld is the only project that's under construction at the moment. It should get to commercial operations in April this year. There is also the 5 megawatt Clava wind farm, which is should reach financial close this year and start construction soon thereafter. And we have another 780 megawatts of projects across 6 projects in the pipeline at an advanced stage of development. And when I say advanced, it should be able to start construction in the next 2 years. And then we have a further more than 1,000 megawatts of various projects at a very early stage of development in South Africa.
Okay. So it looks like you definitely have a lot on your plate. And I can also suspect that obviously there's a lot of challenges that you encounter. Can you just touch on the main one that you've been seeing all throughout the development of this project that you've been on?
Well, we've had a number of challenges that we encountered over the years. One of the biggest one is actually government procurement and how it's been stalling since the end of 2015. There hasn't really been a renewable energy auction in South Africa since then, and that's caused a lot of issues with the planning and development of further projects and so on. But even without that, it's challenging enough to develop wind farm projects. There's a very high capital outlay required over 3 years at least, just to get them to a stage where you can qualify to bid them in an auction, never mind win, and proceed to financial close and construction. We had several environmental issues, opposition from neighboring landowners, and competition is always a challenge, and staying ahead of the game.
Okay. So I'm quite familiar with some of those challenges that you mentioned. Now, talking about the communities. So usually, we doing this project, this is to bring power to the people and also to businesses. Can you talk about the main benefits that you can see from the community, from the South African model that obviously you've been part of since the start of your career, but also maybe Africa in general?
Okay, so I assume by communities you mean the communities in the vicinity of the wind farm.
Yes.
And the benefits are quite substantial, because one has to bear in mind those are typically rural communities with a little bit of agriculture going on, but hardly any commerce, hardly any industry, high rates of unemployment, very difficult to find jobs. Now we're coming into those regions with financial inflows of in the billions of rands, which creates enormous opportunities, direct opportunities during construction. There's a lot of low-skilled labor that's needed in the process, but also to a certain extent during operation of the wind farm. And all the secondary opportunities. So all that construction staff, they need to eat, they need to stay somewhere. There's transport services, catering, all sorts of things that suddenly come into play and brings enormous benefits to the communities on site. There's also, as part of the South African program at least, there's a mandatory ownership by local communities of at least 2.5% according to the current model, plus at least 1% of revenues that then during operation gets poured back into community upliftment programs. And that's anything ranging from education and skills training to supporting entrepreneurs and related projects.
Okay, that's great. So one of my pet topic, it's about talking about the that's true for wind and solar, is to talk about the intermittency issues, right? So everybody knows about that. It's been well documented. One of my arguments is still saying that to grow the sector, we clearly need to be looking at ways whereby we can include wind as a base load energy for base load power. So I was wondering, from your side, being an expert, how do you think we can develop a strategy also including wind as part of base load power?
Well, interesting that you use the word baseload, because I actually think it's a remnant of 20th century thinking. It's outdated, and if you look at modern electricity grids with a lot of renewables on the grid, like California, and you speak to the California Independent System Operator, they will tell you that baseload is actually the enemy, not the friend. Those plants, those nuclear plants, or few baseload plants that they have left on the grid, are actually the ones that give them the biggest problems, not the easiest to deal with, because of the way that they can't follow a varying demand. And this is the issue that most people don't understand. Demand is not constant. Demand goes up and down all the time. In South Africa, we get a demand peak in the mornings, and another one even stronger one in the evenings, and then at night there's not that much usage. So even if you couple a wind farm, say with battery storage to try and eat out, it's actually not what the grid needs. So in order to get closer to what the grid needs, and that is delivering power when it's needed, the answer really is to couple wind farms with battery storage. So lithium ion comes to mind, but there's also a couple of other technologies on markets that are really coming of age now. The costs are way lower than they were just years ago, when a lot of these models and plans were put together. So that a wind farm can actually generate the power when it's needed by the consumers on the grid, and that is in the evening, and that only lasts for a few hours. So it's not like you need to store tons and tons of energy to then discharge that and distribute to the grid when the wind isn't blowing. It's actually much smaller than the issue than most people think it is.
Okay. Another very important topic, I'm sure you know much more than me on that. This is the current load shedding crisis that the country, South Africa, is going on. So obviously, the government has been taking some measure, or announcing some measures. So actually, it's quite different there. Looking at obviously fast tracking the procurement program. So hopefully that will follow, and also looking more closely at the decentralization model. But I wanted to know from your perspective, how do you think wind power can support and help in this particular moment in time for the country in terms of getting rid of this load shedding?
Right. So wind is certainly a big part of the solution to load shedding in the long run. To avoid load shedding in the next week or the next month or even the current year, I'm afraid it's unrealistic for wind to expect wind to plug that gap, simply because of the long lead times. You do need to procure the energy. Contracts need to be signed for the offtake of the electricity, and finance needs to be raised to build these plants. And unfortunately, with any project worth more than R1 billion, those things can't be done overnight. But in the longer run, we're talking now 2, 3, 4 years, there are gigawatts, literally gigawatts of wind power projects ready to go and ready to be procured tomorrow. And construction, once all the contracts are in place and all the permitting is finalized, and that gets me back to my earlier point about red tape, which they unfortunately haven't really simplified. Once all that is in place, a wind farm can deliver power within 12 to 18 months if the good conditions are right and some of the delaying factors in the procurement conditions are relaxed. So together with storage and photovoltaic energy, I think renewables has what it takes to solve the load shedding crisis in the long run.
Excellent, excellent. So let me now move to my last question, but not the least. So it's to talk about Africa as a whole, and specifically talking about the current AFCFTA. So I'm sure a businessman like yourself, you would have heard of it, which is the construction of the big, huge African common market. Even more interesting, so we know that a South African man would be the first to head the secretariat that will be held in Accra, in Ghana. I know it's still very early stage, but obviously it's quite promising. I was wondering how you, as the leader, the head of G7, is planning to take advantage of that and take obviously your solutions, your services beyond the South African market and to tackle the African market. Any thought on that?
Yes, I believe this free trade agreement will simplify a lot of matters in our business expansion strategy going forward. I mean, you need to bear in mind that for now, we're still fully focused on the South African market. But once we are ready to enter other African markets, this free trade agreement will make it much, much easier for us to, move staff across to other countries, and move goods and services. For example, electrical equipment required in cabling and substations and whatnot of wind farms. A lot of that stuff is already manufactured in South Africa, and to move that into other African countries which may not have such manufacturing capabilities is a very exciting prospect. So I believe it's good for us.
I think we're all looking forward to this common market coming into place and shape, and also looking at the implementation, especially from the industry perspective. So, Dr. Killian Hageman, it was a real pleasure for me to be talking to you today. So you were talking to Renewables in Africa. We are African clean energy champions, so we really want to be looking more people like yourself doing fantastic work in wind energy for sure, renewables, renewable energy at large. And then all that's left for me to say is thank you very much for your time, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.